you'll understand the reason why the black woman has turned from a tender and delicate woman to a so-called monster, and you don't see these other races doing this, these Asians and Arabs and all that, why they're not doing it, is because we lost sight of who our enemy is. They know who the enemy is. They know when they come from China, come from somewhere else, they know to stick together, they know to keep their money in Chinatown, they know to love each other because they didn't lose sight of who the enemy is. You understand? Give me Deuteronomy 28 and 68 real quick. And we're gonna go with this real quick, and we're gonna see what God said about enemies. We're gonna see what God said about enemies, not our words. We're not writing poetry and raps. We're gonna read exactly what God said about having enemies. You understand? The Asian woman know her enemy. The Asian man know his enemy. You understand? And guess who else know their enemy? The white man and woman know their enemy too. You understand? They know their enemy too. But black man, woman, and child, we lost sight of who our enemy is. Because back in slavery times, we knew who our goddamn enemy was. That's why grandma and grandpa stayed together for 87 years. Because they knew who their enemy was. Right. Let's see what the Bible says. Read.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 68, which reads, "And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with..."
This is what the Lord is saying. He's going to bring his people back into bondage again. You understand? That's what the word Egypt means, bondage. And he's telling his children, he's telling his chosen children, I'm going to bring you back in bondage again. But how's he going to do it?
Into Egypt again with ships.
With what?
With ships.
Blacks came to America how?
With ships.
Slaves came to America how?
With ships.
God said he's going to send his children back into bondage and slavery again, but this time he's going to do it with ships. Right. This is what God said. Keep going.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
You're not going to see your homeland no more again. You're going to go into slavery on ships. But what's going to happen then? Go ahead.
And there you shall be sold.
Say it again.
You shall be sold.
My grandmother was what?
Sold.
My grandfather was what?
Sold.
My aunts was what?
Sold.
Black men were what?
Sold.
We were sold to who?
Unto your enemy.
Unto who?
Your enemy.
The white man bought us and he's what now?
Your enemy.
We forgot who our enemies was.
That's right.
We forgot who our enemies was. Well, God just said we would be put on slave ships and brought to a land to be sold to our enemies. That's what God said.
Right.
You understand? And that's why they got Chinatown and everywhere else, because they know who their enemy is. And this is why we're losing Harlem. This is why they can come and gentrify and take Harlem, because you don't know who your enemy is.
Right.
You understand? You think it's your next door neighbor that plays loud music, or the boy bouncing the basketball on top of your goddamn head in the next apartment. That's who you think your enemy is. Well, God said you would go into slavery on ships and be sold to your enemies. Let's see what else. Go ahead.
For bondmen.
Say it again.
For bondmen.
This is what God said. You're going to be sold to your enemies for bondmen. And what else?
And bondwomen.
That means you're going to be slaves. And let me tell you, that bondman and that bondwoman, they had a bond, all right. They knew who their goddamn enemy was. Give me Ecclesiastes 12 and 10 in the Apocrypha. You understand? We're gonna talk about this enemy. And this is why the brother's bringing out what he's bringing out. All these goddamn abortions and everything else, all the drug and gang violence and everything else, because we forgot who our enemy is. You understand? We forgot all about it. Well, we're gonna just read the Bible, see what the Bible says. Because guess what? Ukraine know who their enemy is.
Right.
Russians know who their enemy is. North Korea know who their enemy is. Guess who else? Africa know who their enemy is. But niggas in Harlem don't know. Niggas in Brooklyn don't know. People sitting up in the Christian church, they don't know. God love everybody. That's not true. That's not in the Bible nowhere.
Right.
We just read about being sold on ships to our enemies. We just read it. We just read it. Now what does God say about the enemies we were sold to? Let's see what God says. Read.
It's the book of Ecclesiastes in the Apocrypha. Chapter 12, verse 10.
This is what God said about these enemies we were going to be sold to. Go ahead.
Never.
Say it again.
Never.
Sometime.
Never.
Go ahead.
Trust thy enemy.
God said don't never trust them.
Right.
This is what God said. You understand? And that's why the Asians got Chinatown. That's why the Asians are aborting babies at $400,000 a year, because they know who their enemy is.
Right.
They would never go to a white abortion clinic and get a baby sucked out of the vagina with a vacuum. But a black woman will, a Hispanic woman will. You know why? Because we don't recall who our enemy is. But what does God say?
Never trust thine enemy.
Now let them stick a vacuum in your vagina and suck your son out.
Never trust thine enemy.
No, go sit up in this church and praise white Jesus.
Never trust thine enemy.
This is what God said. I'm not making this up.
Right.
This is what God said, and this is why we can't come together, because we don't know who the goddamn enemy is. And until we know who the enemy is, we gonna keep on using his drugs, smoking that brand new high grade weed that got people zombied out looking crazy, smoking K2, having abortions, wild, ridiculous, crazy sex, gonorrhea and everything else crawling all up in these girls, you understand? Because we don't know who our enemy is, man. And if we knew who our enemy is, then we can come together.
Nobody tell you crack. You know why? Because I never saw you before. But you a black man like me. And it works out.
My whole life was trying to find something to follow. Had loyalty, every man tried to borrow. Felt pain and a lot of sorrow. Got betrayed, sold packs. I didn't even have my heart broke. Living confused, about to lose hope. Cops got me on the side of the road like a sideshow. Need an antidote before I croak. Now I'm setting fire to rhythm man blues for this guitar smoke. Rebel with no cause, trying to find direction. The world got me vexed. Picked up a bad liquor habit that's hereditary from oppression. Felt like my life was on fire, trying to find an exit. Now look, 10 G's plus a good wreck. Sometimes a follower is a soldier, trying to find a good ship. Plus when you in hell, how do you excel? Wisdom the breath of life, I don't believe in fairy tale. Listen well to what I tell. No calling can cause pain. Something that a rebel knows very well. Can't you tell I was sent from the Lord?